Good morning, Fractal Effects team. Please make sure you read the disclosure before we get started. If you're following along with us today, make sure you do in a demo account, as this is for educational purposes only. We are not financial advisors, and this is not financial advice. Jump onto the charts in a minute. So we got a bearish day here. NAS on the left, US 30 on the right. So there was no early session today just because of the news drop at 7 o'clock, or 10 o'clock Eastern Standard. But what we did have was we had a bounce off the blue zone. The market manipulated to the downside. We had a double break. So a double break is when we push towards the manipulation move twice. So there's a 5M pullback and then a second push. That changes our bias immediately. So as mentioned before, with the manipulation move, the whole point is the market manipulates in one direction, which is kind of a telltale sign, lets us know that it wants to go in the other direction. It's getting a peek at the dealer's hand. But if you have a double break in that same direction, then our bias changes and we follow that market at least to a higher time frame PD array. So a 4-hour or a daily inefficiency, or previous day's high-low, where it sweeps liquidity. Then it could possibly reverse and pull back. So that's what we had today. There's the manipulation range. So there's the manipulation range low. Again, the indicator paints that out for you with the green line. A little hard to see in this one right here because it was because the market just kept dropping. So there's the low, that little green line right there. And the high was up here. You can see it kind of going under the 238. So we manipulated down first with this red candle. Then we had a pullback. Remember, what's a pullback? Is when we break the previous candle's high or low. So if we're dropping, that means a pullback would mean us taking out the high, body, and wick of the previous candle. So we wicked above there, and then we had a second drop. That's considered a second break. So then you could have, but I've said this before, I'm not the biggest fan of the second break, but you can take the next 5M candle in the series. I'm not even sure if this one got tapped. I stayed out of the early session today. So just short of being tapped right there. I'm sure it tapped it on a 1M. but I like to see things happening on the 5M. So this is the first fair value gap on the 5M that got tapped, and the market just dropped. That would have been the early play if anybody took it. And we're under the blue zone. So now we're waiting for confirmation. Our range is fully formed. We have a red box. We have a crossover, 20 under the 50. Today is a down day. I believe we're red across the board. All stocks are down, at least the tech sector. NAS, S&P, US 30. US 30 swept out all the lows. Looks like it'll give us a early pullback before NAS does. There's our NWOG, our new week opening gap, which again the indicator paints out. Now in days where there's no news, or I should say no red folders or any aggressive news, then you're going to retrace back to fair value. And what's fair value? Fair value is the new week opening gap, the new day opening gap, the midnight line. The market is designed to come back to equilibrium when there's no heavy news. And today is considered I guess this entire week is a low news day. We just got a confirmation on oil, so we'll switch US 30. You know what, we'll switch let's switch US 30. So we just got a bearish confirmation on oil. We're red across the board. We have a downside expansion model. Let's see something here. Just like everything else, big drop. Took out all the lows. We tapped into this fair value gap. It's London. Okay. So everything looks prime here. We're just waiting now for a retracement back to that 20. 20 EMA could be in this fair value gap. Might even be all the way up here. Let's see how fast the market moves. For now, I'll paint out this one. Here comes NAS, retracing back to the 20. Still no confirmation. If we get a confirmation on another asset, we'll jump in over there. We're not going to wait for NAS. Everybody has preferences. Me personally, I've mentioned this many times, I don't like the double break. I don't like taking that. But on top of that, I don't like the early retracement. I'd rather get a confirmation than a retracement. Because when you get an early retracement, it could either punch through and give us a confirmation on the other side, which is fine because it didn't really catch us. But then when we do get that confirmation, it likes to move fast. And we don't make a move until we get that confirmation. Let's drop in a fib at least. So anytime you have these two indicators on top of each other, just make sure you zoom in, you know exactly what range you're looking at. So that's the top of our dealing range right here. To the low. So there's a fair value gap here, right near 61%. It's right where the 20 is sitting now. So I'd like to see what happens here. We can get rid of this. Oops. That is our New York fair value gap. That's another telltale sign that works in confluence with the double break. When you have the opening fair value gap left open, becomes a breakaway gap, then there's more confluence that lets you know that this thing will just tap the next fair value gap and continue pushing down. You could have got it 1 to 3 in here. So now we're waiting for this retracement. With oil, we're beginning that retracement already, so we got a bearish confirmation right across the board. So the only thing we're looking for is a sell. We have a downside expansion model. Not only that, but even for the blue zone indicator, we had a sell model. So everything is working in confluence for us and with us right here. Now we just want to see a retracement. And then we want to see our entry model set up. So I'm more interested in oil. And this is US oil. Make sure you're looking at the right ticker. I want to see it touch that 20 first. Now it's giving us some reaction off this fair value gap. So we have not touched the 20 EMA since we had this crossover, since the drop. So I really want to see it touch this first. Unless we get a confirmation first, then a pullback, that'll be even better. Why do we wait for confirmation? Remember, as soon as we get confirmation, there is a 70 to 75% chance that the other side of that range will not break. And then there's an 80% chance, once we get that confirmation, we will retrace back into our range. So we use these statistics. That's where you get your high probability trade setup. Still patiently waiting. We want to get either a confirmation or we want to push up and touch this 20. For US oil, we want to see it come back up and touch that 20 and see what it does in this fair value gap. And if either of these markets just takes off from there, that's fine. We didn't get caught in any trap. As mentioned before though, make sure you know which ticker you're looking at. Every broker has a different set of tickers. Or be patient. Stick to the strategy. Since we're moving slow here on NAS, let me jump to gold and show you the gold trade that we took. Lately I've been trading the Asia session. It's actually been pretty easy. Sorry, charts are moving a little slow here. So took actually quite a few trades yesterday on gold. So we had gold manipulate up. Sorry, 1 second. A little messy here, hard to see, but there's our manipulation range. Gold originally manipulated up first, which let us know that it was looking for a sell-off. The end dog was right above. It didn't tap it, but we got our first red, our first bearish fair value gap on the 5M. Took that. Not sure why it's not moving here. 1 second. Oil slowly making its way up. Yeah, there was the gold trade right in here. Took that sell all the way to this gap here. So from here to here. As I mentioned before, there was a couple of trade setups. Took it originally from here to here, then it came back up. I took a second entry down. But it's as simple as that. Once you know your range, wait for the manipulation move, wait for your setup, 5M fair value gap, tap it, drop down to a smaller time frame, 1M fair value gap, tap it. And then I used the spotlight indicator as just my confluence. But every session has built within it a manipulation move. You know, New York, we see that every morning. But if you're not watching, remember it's a London reversal. They call it the London reversal, but it's just the manipulation move. Same thing happens during the Asia session. And we walk you through it. But as soon as you see that manipulation move and you already know what your bias is, you know exactly what kind of expansion model you have, a buy model, sell model. Then you just wait for that manipulation move. You want the manipulation move to head in the opposite direction of your bias, because that means the market's going to then drop and or go up in the direction of your bias. So that was the gold trade from yesterday. We are partnering with a company that will possibly be, we're still figuring it out, but they'll be able to highlight some more trade setups, possibly through a Telegram. So we'll be dropping our Telegram, or rather this brand new Telegram, into or on our YouTube. So you'll be able to just sign up through that link. So that was yesterday's setup. Let's take a look at London. So London, keep in mind London is the only session that uses red lines for its manipulation move. Both New York and Asia have green manipulation lines. The only reason we went with red was because the box here that we use is already red. So we manipulated, so there was the range. We manipulated down first. Yeah, look how clean this one was. I wasn't even awake for this. We manipulated down. Our first green fair value gap that was created, I believe, was here. Tapped a little late, that's the only thing. And then extended to to take out the top of the red range, the red zone. But that would have been clean too. Sometimes these sessions are cleaner because there's just less manipulation happening during that time, during Asia and during the London session. We'll go, we're trying to see if we have time and eventually set up a schedule where we could go live, at least during the Asia session. London's a little late. We might have to bring on an affiliate who's in a different time zone that can trade that live, but we'll see. Oil, still just paused there, waiting for it to come up. Let's jump back to NAS, see what it's doing. You can see I have a couple of different NAS tickers here, and it's each one of them has a different broker. That's why the price is going to show up differently. That's why I say make sure you pair up your broker with the ticker. NAS, again, still stuck at that fair value gap right there. But until it touches that 20, I'm not interested. Maybe even up to that 50 since it's all here. 61, there's the NYC fair value gap. So it could do a deep retracement all the way here into the blue zone, into the NYC fair value gap. And I've said this many times, just because I have an inclination or an idea of where it might be going doesn't mean that I want to take that trade. I don't want to take this trade into the NYC fair value gap or into the blue. They're on top of each other. That's an even higher magnetic zone. But I don't want to take that. Everything's red across the board. That would be a counter trend trade. You want to see what it does there. Then you want to take the sell off. And or if it punches through, then you know it's going to be a false day. Then you want to avoid that altogether. Just be patient. Also keep in mind we're always updating the Market Watch section and the blog. Goal is to have that done daily. So make sure you're checking that out. That's in the footer of the Fractal Effects, the fractaleffects.com website on the bottom there. So in the footer, you'll see blog, which is free for everybody, and then Market Watch, which you have an ability to check out the topics, but in order to read further, you have to have a membership. But we're making all of this available for our users. We've introduced new prices as well, better packages, and we're going to continue to add on to that, as mentioned before, with the Telegram service, and eventually we'll set up a community with Discord. So here comes NAS, up to that 20. I personally think it's going to punch past wick here, and then it will continue up either, or it will give us the telltale sign that it actually wants to push down. But look how powerful that blue zone is. Here's the early session, bounced right off of it, pushed up, took out London highs. The indicator painted out a new blue zone. As soon as you got under it, rejected off of it, right through. Now, again, magnetically just drawn. Let's see if it comes all the way up to the blue zone. Doesn't always have to, but it's just a highly algorithmic zone that the market is drawn to. And then, as mentioned before, there's our New York fair value gap that's sitting right under it. Two very powerful levels. coming all the way up to that 20. Anybody who says that the market is not controlled by an algorithm, they're not looking close enough. Look at this. It's going to come right up to that 20. There's a little fair value gap in here, so it could turn around here. But as mentioned before, with this big of a drop, I have a stronger bias that it's going to push up, and then it will get more of a reaction probably around here. But we'll see. Could just be an extremely bearish market that just wants to continue to drop from here. Still nothing from oil. Remember, we don't make a move until it comes back and it touches that 20. Most likely it'll happen in this fair value gap. Just going to paint on this little sliver of a fair value gap here. About 6 minutes away from 11. No other confirmation yet across any other asset. Just going to check US 30 here. Same thing. Just short of a confirmation and then pushed back up. But this is already at the golden zone. So there's our range. Gotta be precise. So right at the golden zone, right at the blue zone. We also have a purple zone. Remember, the purple zone is used to help us direct the Asia and the London session. And then during the New York session, it's a great take profit and rejection point as well. It's not as strong as the blue zone. That's why it comes all the way through. The purple zone is painted from purple to purple. So it's going to extend all the way through the New York session until the next purple session begins, or the purple zone begins. So we'll most likely see some kind of a reaction here. We're already at the end dog. A lot of powerful resistance here. End dog, New York fair value gap, purple zone. There's the blue zone under here. Let's jump back to oil. We did just get another confirmation on GBP USD. We'll switch NAS for now until we get another confirmation. Was it GBP USD or was it? Yep. So we got a bearish confirmation. We are green though across the board. Buy model. Let's check out the manipulation range first. So there's the bottom of the manipulation range in this purple zone. Right here, that's the green line. That's where we're heading now. And the top of the manipulation range is here. It wasn't really taken. Let's zoom in. Yeah, no, it wasn't taken. So neither side of the manipulation range has been broken yet. That means wherever we hit first, whichever area we sweep will be the manipulation play. So this thing might manipulate down first, take out the range, bounce off the purple, maybe even the 238, and then continue up. I believe these are old fair value gaps. Let me just get rid of all. Try to keep your charts clean. So we had a green box buy model. Let me see something here. So the blue zone from the 15, the area of interest. I want to see what happens here. So one of two things is going to happen. Now that we have a confirmation, we're going to either get that retracement into, let's see if this fair value gap stays open. So we might just tap this fair value gap and then drop to the midpoint here, to the 238 and then to the NWOG. Or if we bounce down here first, then come back in for that retracement. For oil, we're back at that fair value gap, or I should say finally coming into that fair value gap. Let's see if we get up there and touch it. So GBP USD is coming down to at the very least here. Now is it going to come here first, or is it going to bounce off this, give us our retracement, then drop? Let's pair this up. Probably matches with our one standard deviation. Yeah, that's not a coincidence. That's exactly where the blue zone is on the 15. So any retracement here, any fair value gap. So this candle's closed now, leaving this fair value gap open. I want to see if the market comes in and taps here and then pushes to that one standard deviation. Remember, this is GBP USD we're looking at here. I'm going to zoom in and clean that fair value gap up. But that's our fair value gap of interest right now. So this thing could move fast. Just want to see a touch here, then we'll drop down into a smaller time frame. Unless it takes off without us, which again, that's fine. There's nothing we can do about that. like to see it come in. Tap that 50, maybe stay under it. Maybe touch the 20. It's got to be room. Got to have a room to grow. So if our entry is somewhere in this ballpark, that would be our stop. See, no room to grow here, 1.39. We could go as low as the NWOG. But keep in mind we have a buy model set up, so this is more or less a retracement before it turns back around. Back up, let's see. There's the NYC fair value gap in here and a big fair value gap in here, so it could retrace back up in here. That's why I'd like to see what it does here first. So if we turned around here, there's not really much room to grow to one standard deviation. It's only a 1.73. We don't take anything under a 1 to 3, maybe a 1 to 2.5. And the second it drops, let's say it just drops on us right now and touches this, I'd stay out just because we've already hit the one standard deviation and everything is bullish. This is more or less just a retracement. Oil dropped again, left this fair value gap open. I still want to see it sweep these highs, touch that 20, and then drop. Just going to stay patient. About 24 minutes left. We got enough time here. Sadly, I think it's going to drop from here. Maybe touch the 20. Just not enough room. That's how precision you guys have to be. Got to be able to look at something and say, there's just not enough of a reward there. 2.38, even that. So even though I have a strong inclination, it's going to jump in here and then drop down to one standard deviation. It's just too small of a move to really care about and to risk. Remember, your risk to reward has to make sense. And you got the purple zone right under here. Let's wait and see. Let's see if it gets up here. Oil moving super slow. Let's take a look at NAS real quick. So NAS never quite hit that 20 yet. Reacting off this fair value gap. We're digging deeper into the purple zone now in GBP USD. Nothing's been tapped, no fair value gap's been tapped yet. So if it takes off without us, that's fine. If it comes back up here, then it becomes interesting. That's why one standard deviation is our low-hanging fruit, because as mentioned before, when you have a buy model from the blue zone and then you get a bearish confirmation, we already have a green box as well. We have a green box, bearish confirmation, buy, sell. That means this is most likely just a deep retracement to the one standard deviation, to the blue zone on the 15M, and then a shoot up. That's why if there's room from here to one standard deviation, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm not willing to play this because I don't see it getting past the 238, or at least not the NWOG. Now we're finally coming back up into this fair value gap. We'll leave this on oil since NAS isn't really giving us anything. Nothing interesting about oil yet. It did not come back into our zone. But looks like GBP USD is. Now let's see how deep it retraces. If we can get up here or up here, it'll be worth it. Now usually I don't like to do a counter trend trade, but as mentioned before, I think it come down to at least the one standard deviation if it all sets up right, but only from here, or even a little higher technically, to the 20 EMA. That's 2.5. Just waiting and watching. So we're right at that 50, a little short of the area we'd be interested in. So let's see where we turn around now. So on the 1M, let's see if we get a what you want to see is not only a bearish fair value gap be created on a 1M, but you want to see a candle close over the series of candles that started that push into the fair value gap. So it'd have to close all the way down here, which decreases our risk reward even more. But let's wait and watch. Oil still just stuck there. The 20 EMA is now inside that fair value gap. Still no fair value gap on GBP USD. Looks like it might be created on this next candle though, on the 1M. Let's see if oil pushes up with this next candle. There's the 1 standard deviation. If it taps here and gives us an entry, there might be room here. That'd be a good setup for oil. Looks like we're slowly doing that retracement now. Let's see if it just bounces off this fair value gap and keeps pushing, or if it finally comes back up into this fair value gap and touches the 20. This is where we're interested. I'd like to see us sweep out these highs. Still nothing on GBP USD. There's no 1M fair value gap that's been created yet. Plus, we're still below the area of interest that would give us this a positive risk to reward. This is how precise you have to become, though. As mentioned before, I've seen, I can't even tell you how many, thousands of setups that I just passed on because it didn't fit my criteria, even though I knew that it was going to tap and it was going to go. If there's no room, it doesn't make any sense. That's what separates the professionals from the retail traders. The retail traders are just looking to make a buck. You want to become proficient at this, you have to be able to take these high probability, wait for the high probability trade setups, not just take any random trade that you see just because you might make a buck or two. That makes you a retail trader, and retail traders end up failing. 95% fail rate for anybody who wants to do this professionally, unless they know what they're doing. Our goal is to make you part of that 5%, to make you proficient, to only look for the high probability trade setups. We have math on our side. We have statistics on our side. If I told you there was a 1 in 1,000 chance you might win the lottery versus a 70% chance that you might win the lottery, would you be willing to be patient, take your time, play it right? In order to do that, you have to be willing to let some of these go by. Still nothing on GBP USD. We're just getting a lot of gesticulation. I want to see it move up and get into our risk to reward zone, which is up here. There's been no 1M bearish fair value gap created for us to even use as a foothold to drop. So not only is this risk to reward currently poor, on top of that, we haven't actually seen the setup for it to go short yet. Oil on the right. Still want to see it touch that 20. We did get some retracement back into the zone. I just don't like this gesticulation. I want to see it take this out, touch that 20, and then drop. That's what we're waiting for on oil. Those are the only two setups that the market's, two decent setups, I should say, that the market's offering right now. Got about 10 minutes left in our stream. Let's see if we can't jump into something. Once you become proficient at this, trade at any time of the day. Gold futures trades in the evening. That's where we made the bulk of right now, with the leap contest. Sorry, just still loading, I guess. Where's their leaderboard? That must be down. We'll check it out later. We're sitting at 40%. We're in the we're in the top 5% of all traders. Yeah. Just gonna have to exit this. Sorry. I think it's our stream right now. It's slowing everything down. So we're in the top 40%. I mean, sorry, we're in the top 6%. 5 actually. Last time I checked, top 5% with a profit gain of over 40%, and that's under 30 days. And that was not aggressively trading, but about 75 to 80% of those trades were taken during the Asia session, and they were taken on gold futures. But you're able to find these trade setups. Just showed you 2 from last night during the Asia session and during the London session on gold futures. They're there. And they're much cleaner at times than the New York session. And maybe that's what we'll have to do. Maybe we'll start introducing some Asia sessions into to our live stream, and then eventually London sessions. On top of that, as mentioned before, our goal is to be setting. Our goal is to set up a Telegram. It will be a paid subscription to the Telegram as well. But we'll be giving you a lot of insights. We're going to be giving. We're partnering with this company that's going to be giving signal services. So wait for that. My apologies. I think our streams, there's a lot of lag time right now. So 7 minutes left. Let's see if we get a push. Just patiently waiting and watching. Still nothing. No other confirmation. So oil's broken down a couple of times. Meaning it could just continue to run these slow, small candles. But that's the only area I'm interested in. I need to see at least take out these highs and touch this 20. I don't want to push from this fair value gap. GBP USD just stalled there. And I'm sure it'll drop from here. We have all this jump back up to the 5M. We have all the confluence, it's just there's no room here. So we're paused here, bouncing off this fair value gap. Still waiting for that that bearish fair value gap on the 1M to be created, and then for it to drop to this midpoint. Again, that's our bias. That's where we know this thing could push to. There's just no room here. I don't have my 1 to 3. I only have a 1 to 2.6, 2.63 up here. So this is not even worth my time. And during this whole time, it's given us this sloppy price action back and forth, all this consolidation. Now it's pushing back up again, most likely to take these out. Wick under the 238. I still have a bias for this midpoint right here. That's the blue zone on the 15M. But just there is no 1 to 3. About 2 minutes left in our stream. So we'll follow these. This will be our last candle on the 1. Fortunately, didn't give us any kind of setup here. But for anybody watching these, continue to do your homework. Watch GBP USD. Check it out later in the day. But you'll see, eventually you'll get that turnaround. Who knows exactly where it's going to be. Right now it's not giving us anything here. And then you'll tap somewhere around this zone, maybe the NWOG, maybe even to the blue zone, and then back up. But you need at least a 1M fair value gap. With oil, again, touch that 20 down to that 1 standard deviation, but make sure you do your homework. Check this out later to see if it did that, or if it just kept slowly dropping and dropping and dropping, which is fine. That means they don't really want you to get in. I don't want to get in here. At least when it hits the 20, I know that it's definitive. It wants to start pushing. Is it going to bounce off the 20, or is it going to come all the way up to the 50? So I want to see it hit this and then give us that push. We didn't get any of that today. This looks like it might be pushing, and then I do have an inclination that'll get down to at least the NWOG in this zone. But that's going to be after our stream. So we're already at 11:30. Remember, if you don't find a high probability trade setup before you hit 11:30, 1 hour after the range formation, then there's no point. I'm sure this might even be the push here. We'll see if it even leaves open. So we still got to wait for one more candle to print, but do your due diligence. And then again, come back and check out this market, see if it left a fair value gap, tapped it, and then continued down to the midpoint of